Good morning, everybody. It is November 25th, 2023. It's 8:18 a.m. I am your host, Tom Kaczynski, on a frigid Maine morning. It was below zero this morning, which is a little early for that up here. Winter just came without leaving us but 5 seconds for fall. I hope you're warmer than I am, but I've bundled up pretty well, so looks pretty good, right? Welcome to the show. Today, just going to cover a couple different topics that have been on my mind here. And just a reminder, if you want to support the program, the Venmo is CVCPRV, and go check out the books. If you buy books, I get to buy books. And if I get to buy books, I'm a happy boy. Just recently bought a book on the history of the Turkic peoples, actually, because I'm trying to connect some dots, but we'll get to that at the end of the story. So the two things I really want to talk about today in particular, and in my mind, they're directly related. Number one is, according to multiple sources, Derek Chauvin, the police officer for Minneapolis, who was convicted in a trial of his peers, wink, wink, of being guilty of, the death of George Floyd, despite the fact that now a documentary has come out showing that, in fact, a whole bunch of documents were messed up along the way, including the autopsy report, because, like most sane people know, he died from fentanyl overdose. Not speaking to police brutality, but hey, let's call it fair. Now we don't have police anymore because police have been thrown under the bus by the administration officials who say certain people are allowed to riot and others are not. But Derek Chauvin, 4 days ago, actually 5 days ago now, got to correct for my days, filed an appeal to the Supreme Court that he was wrongfully convicted, that I found, and I think a lot of other people found, very compelling, as this was basically a political lynch mob that found him guilty. And now, all of a sudden, we learned last night that he was stabbed and apparently has since died in prison in the federal penitentiary system in Tucson, Arizona. So, my condolences to his family, of course. But this was judicial murder. And there's a difference between justice and judicial murder. This was a problem that the state wanted to go away. Let's be real honest about it, because if they let him go, then the usual suspects would go rioting about. So they made the problem disappear, betting, probably rightly, that, people will notice, but they might complain, but they won't do anything. And we notice a lot. And that's where we are in the story. We constantly notice things. We notice that certain people are allowed to say certain things. We notice that some people are allowed to speak out for the idea that their group should be treated differently. Like on Facebook. Do you know you can actually promote genocide as long as it's against Palestinians? Just an interesting thought about who can say what and where the power lies. But I want to link this to the second story I've been watching, which is Ireland. Ireland was interesting this weekend, or I should say this week. There was a case in Ireland. Keep in mind, Ireland has never been a colonial power, okay? So you can't say white privilege or any of that crap. Ireland was pretty brutally put down in riot after riot for the better part of hundreds of years by the English. The history of the IRA is out there for any of you to read. And what they have done, in spite of this, in the process of joining the European Union, is they have imported a bunch of people. We are told it's for economic reasons, but many of these people don't have any jobs and are just a draw in the system, much like the people of New York and other cities are experiencing now, the people of the Southland, Texas, Arizona, California have experienced for many years. And one of these gentlemen, an Algerian by extraction, murdered 5 people or stabbed 5 people. I don't know if they all died. I want to be clear. I don't remember the details of that, but 3 of them were children, or minors at least. And then they started to riot when there was a suggestion something would happen. And some Irish men came out and said, enough is enough. And they defended certain things, and they pushed these people back, and they went and they set fire to a Holiday Inn where they were being housed, and they destroyed a bus, writing out on it for people who they didn't want there, and a number of other actions that you can find easily off online over at X, before it gets fully deplatformed. And, of course, the government of Ireland rushed out there to call these people far-right extremists for doing less than BLM did 5 seconds after George Floyd OD'd. So, what's the story here? This is what I want you to understand, and this is especially important for my many, many American friends who have a fetish of believing the law will protect you. You have to understand that law inherently is just the codification of a power relationship between those who have the ability to use force and not be punished for it, and the people who can use force and be punished for it. And if you are in the lower class or middle class and you happen to look like a heritage person of whatever your country is at this point in Europe or North America, you are not permitted to use the same tools that have been weaponized against you. It's just the truth. And you need to understand that the same rules will not apply. They can go murder someone. They won't get prosecuted. You can go walk through a hallway and you'll be held, old habeas corpus, no trial, as the videos that have come out from J6 have proven. And you have to conclude at some point, maybe they want people to revolt. And, all I would say is what did Napoleon say? If you set out to take Vienna, take Vienna. If you're going to play in that world, I'm not, but if you're going to play in that world, understand the game you're playing, okay? Understand that the price of playing in that world is that you better be willing to go the full distance, and understand that the state exists to basically promote low agency people at the expense of restricting people who could potentially represent a threat or alternative. Even nationalism, even people I'm excited about. I mean, so we had a good week politically, right, in theory. Geert Wilders' surprise victory in the Netherlands elections. Javier Milei, who I'm quite fond of, although I'm watching who he brings into his administration, and if he walks back the bank, if he walks back the dollarization, and what happens. And these things may happen. Don't make your decisions based on politics. Make your decisions based on culture. The elections in Slovakia went pretty hard right, and what happened in Ireland. But everyone who's allowed to go forward is explicitly a Zionist, and they're there to support the idea that it seems like the elites have now, that there were certain groups that were brought in that have gone off the reservation, and instead of instead of eating the feed they're given, they've bit the master's hand. You understand what I'm saying, right? This is what we're seeing more and more of, which is why we saw AIPAC go out there and say there's a $100 million fund now to take out these 7 people. There was a candidate, actually. I forget which state it was in. It might have been against Tlaib over there in Michigan. They wanted to have this guy who's running for Senate. They offered him $20 million to run for the House instead, saying, we will build you a fund to beat this woman. And I'm no offender for Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar and these people. No, they shouldn't be there any more than the people putting them. But we see 2 different factions fighting, both of which are of no interest or help to you, okay, to be clear. But for the idea, or at least for the illusion of who has control and for who has a voice that has to be heard, at least somewhat. I mean, you can ignore congressmen somewhat, but we see that this is where we are, and we see in Ireland, and I give credit to Conor McGregor for his strong speech on this, that the solutions to the problems that are out there are simply not going to be had by the political system. It's an economic system of control. It's a surveillance network that's growing all the time. I mean, I'll give you an example. All right, we'll go a little schizo for you here. Why do you think there's LED lights everywhere all of a sudden? Could it be because you could blink signals through LED lights? Could it be because you can send out certain frequencies? Could it be because you could have, you can pipe voices into people's minds? These are all known technologies, by the way. It sounds, they would never do that. Why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they do that? What makes you think this system doesn't hate you enough to direct you, other than that maybe it has sort of like the best defense you have is the benign contempt that they have that you don't matter. That's what the whole gray man theory is. That's what preppers try to do. They try to stay out of the way so the last one grabbed. They're not trying to save the civilization. They're trying to survive it and hoping it falls of its own weight. But it may not. It's been an interesting week in some other ways, too. A lot of rumors about AGI coming forward, artificial generalized intelligence. You see the Q-star stuff, and the suggestion that maybe something happened over there with ChatGPT where it started to learn math. And why is math important? Is 2 plus 2 more than a computer can understand? Well, math is logic. That's why math matters. That's why people studied math going back to Pythagoras in the secret schools. They studied it so that you can understand the connections and relationships between things, and you can posit new relationships. And if you think that doesn't matter, look at fractals for a second and look how much they look like the things you see in nature. Life is mathematical on some level. So It's a major step forward, and I will tell you one thing that makes me believe that there's some smoke to this fire is after Sam Altman was fired and there was a revolt there to bring him back, who was brought on the board? Larry Summers. Okay, Larry Summers. Larry Summers was a Treasury Department person, if memory serves, who worked in the Clinton administration way back in the 90s, okay? But that's important because Treasury usually means they're the back door to the Fed. Those are your controllers, right? And Larry Summers was responsible for selecting a certain undergraduate while at Harvard to run with a program. LifeLog went away, Facebook came forward. Nobody wants the Zuck? Okay, fine. We'll give you a new format. AGI. And what will AGI be able to do? Well, apparently the Pentagon seems to think it'd be able to do a lot. I find it no coincidence that the same week this happens, we see articles coming about how the Pentagon's starting to approve autonomous AI killing drones. Okay. We're living in the Black Mirror timeline. They watched the Skynet stuff and said, nah, we got this. We're going to be okay. But what choice do they have? No one wants to fight for them. Some people are willing to fight against them, and the people they could bring in couldn't win the fights against the machines ahead. But you can throw crap at the wall as long as, can fight to the last Ukrainian. The sad way, all the death over there, it's just terrible. The Ukrainians, the Russians, the Palestinians, even the Israelis. I don't want to see anyone die. For wars that are, pieces of the board? And that's where we're at. A new world is being made. We are being pushed into abject misery and before long, probably mass death, so that some of the debt can go away. A new system could be brought forward. CBDC land. Every country is moving forward with it. Every country, on all sides. That's why you need barter economies. That's why I'm fond of Argentina. Their tin pot economy exists beneath it. Because Americans, we worship money. So people in wealthy countries can't help that. That's what we know. We like the convenience of it. We like being able to do things the easy way. We like being able to have our giant library, like mine. See? Big-ass library. Good stuff. A little bit. You can actually see what I'm hanging. And it's growing all the time, incidentally. I have fun with it, I'm actually getting a lot of archaeological books. Because I spend some time studying consciousness and some time studying high technology. But ultimately, the biggest part's on the inside, understanding that. So what's my message to you guys today? What am I trying to share? What am I trying to convey? The world is changing, and as none other than Yuval Noah Harari said, the age of free will is coming to an end. Thoughts in your head may not be your own, and you're going to have to work really hard to know thyself. I hope and pray this is not something you are struggling with, but if you find ideas happen, or people say you're nothing like you used to be, and things start to change, I would only prayerfully ask that you take a moment, think about what you're thinking, why you're thinking it, and reset yourself. Get away from stimulus too much. Find a nice dark room or a space in nature and try to find peace and quiet and seek the Lord's wisdom. That's what you have to do in this time because it's not getting better. It's getting worse. And I will say this. I was saying the other day that we've reached a point in the game where I always, as a historian, wondered why certain times felt like they did, because we grew up in a pretty optimistic time still. At least I remember it as an optimistic time when I was a kid. And now we've reached a different point in the story. And the point we're at in the story now is negative. I can understand the fall of Rome because people saw a system so corrupt that the people at top were just stealing from it. They decided to sit there and let it fall and instead take care of their own as best they can or go running for the provinces. Gaul looks pretty good right now. Maybe Britannia. Be careful with Parthia. Might not go like you wish. That's one part of it. But the other part of it's the French Revolution part of it. The French Revolution was very bloody, and they just kept killing people. And people are like, why do they keep killing people? And I never understood that because I'm like, you could look at this and say these people were responsible. But you know what? I didn't understand the hatred. And the hatred that comes from years of sucking it up, of people who think they're better than you, of who treat you worse than you are, and who decide that they're going to just make your life miserable. And every time you have a problem, they throw more people at you like an obstacle. They throw new laws at you. And remember, I said this at the beginning, as an American, stop worshiping the law. That's a lesson of Christianity, by the way. Masons don't teach that stuff. But, Christ came to bring grace because God is greater than the law and righteousness is greater than whatever code you have in front of you. I'm not saying don't have a code. Have a code of brothers. Have people you love and stand with. Understand your tribe. Build your crew out, man. Sheepdogs roll, all right? But my point is that do not trust this system to save you. It is demonstrated over and over again. And no one is saying this. No one's saying get rid of the systems that are causing this. And they're not going to because they're scared. The ones who have enough strength to survive try to cut deals. And the ones who don't, they get picked out on the bottom. Because that's what we are in. We're in a, kleptocracy. Where things are stolen from you. You know, that's why there was no big mass rush on Black Friday this year. Why pay for it when you can get it for free, right? And some people can. And some people can't. And there's probably enough people who understand this to do something about it, but we're disconnected. Prosperity's a bitch. We have our own houses and our own places, and it's not like the old days where everyone's in an area. I mean, whenever it happens, it's interesting. The mob always comes from the lower middle class. So, you know, even here in New England, right? Radical politics. It'll come from the hoods of Boston, maybe somewhere like South Boston or something, or maybe South Philadelphia. North Philadelphia is too caught up in drugs; it's just not possible. Places like that, maybe you'll see something emerge there. I don't know. I think, and I continue to believe, the best option is to get out of the way. But that might not be. I mean, even if that's possible for a while, let's be very clear. And people say this to me, and you're not wrong. The problems we deal with are global. Your body is treated like a pincushion. The money you have in the future after AI displaces all of our jobs is going to be for good behavior. And whether we're serving a machine or the people who program the machine, neither is a really commendable option. I actually understand and I'm sympathetic to the logic that says you have to take technology down before humanity loses sovereignty. We're at that point in the story. Ted was right about that. He was not wrong. You trusted the wrong people. And those people would step in your way in 5 seconds. They have predictive models. What was it called? It was at Purdue. They built it years ago. The world simulation where they have models for each and every one of us. That's why they built these social networks. So they can figure out who you're friends to, where your leverage points are, how you can be stopped. From what? From living your life as a normal human being. It's a weird time. But it's an interesting time. And it's like the days of Noah again, right? All right. So the last thing I'm thinking about, spending a lot of time studying archaeological history. Ancient history is a nice, safe hobby. But I tell you what I'm starting to think. I'm starting to think those lost tribes of Israel, if you read in the Bible, they get pushed out over into Assyria, which at the time would be Persia. And some people kept going north. And it's weird trying to figure out who went which way. But a lot of people seem to go up and to the left. That's kind of how people migrated for a long time. And it makes me wonder when you start looking at the heraldry of different groups compared to the things that are biblical. You know, and I say this because people are always like saying, who is the fulfillment of these prophecies for? Well, who knows? The sons of Japheth? The sons of Edom? In ancient history, there's answers to why certain people do certain things. And in the age of NPCs, I've come to realize what we carry with us as our heritage matters a lot more than people assume. And to my European friends and ancestors who come from it, I think you have a heritage that's far greater than you understand. And the people who are coming in, the Turks came later, no one questions that, are not the people who you're looking for the answers to this. And I say this to my Christian friends, and people need to discover it. I can't tell you the answers. I can't tell you because I don't know. I'm searching. I mean, I got a book here. Let's see. Sumerians, Phoenicians, Celts, Babylonians, Sumerians again, Egyptians, the Medes, the Persians, the Canaanites, sea people. That's why I asked for the gift cards for our thrift books. But there's a story there we don't know. And it's our story. It's been stolen from us. Been watching some of the interesting videos Robert Sepper puts out there, Sepehr. Watched one about the Canaanites, which was pretty good. And the idea that Petra was the real Mecca. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, who would say that they're past putting in a new city to tell a different story? Who were the tribes who were in Arabia? I mean, it was heavily populated by Jews who were spread post-diaspora from the temple's destruction in 70 A.D. before Islam came out there. But we don't know these background stories. Just these new groups and these new political movements come on ahead. Bolshevik comes in, there's communism. You're not supposed to ask who were the Bolsheviks. Were they the Khazars who had been distributed around the Polish-Lithuanian Empire that Russia eventually absorbed and who had a historical beef going back to the destruction of their empire in the 10th century A.D.? And they hold their things so long, by the way. You can watch. They talk about them. They're still fighting Amalek. You know, these people who were wandering through the desert, a tribe 2,500 years ago, they're mad at them. Okay. You can't solve sociopathy. Can you save yourself? Well, remember, this world is a passing place. Serve the Lord, seek Jesus, and seek people who understand. And be careful about the friends you keep these days. I got to say that to you. People in their ignorance, thinking they're doing good, may very well betray you. It's a classic story. I hope you don't experience it as well. Okay. That's all I have today. Other than this, Heavenly Father, a blessing upon all who listen today. May you guide them to walk in your footsteps and find your wisdom. In Jesus' mighty name, thank you. I am Tom Kaczynski, Venmo CVC PRV, and I will probably be back on later this weekend with another thing if something comes up. And if you have topics, put them in the bottom. It's helpful to me. All right. God bless. Enjoy.